Good? Okay. Welcome to our first All Candidates Forum for City Councillor at the Grand Forks. My name is Michael Strukoff. I'm the moderator this evening. This event is organized by the Boundary Community Chamber, and Kendra Begg, who's sitting at the front, is the main organizer. And I would like to say a special thank you to her because she's working through an office that hasn't been set up due to flooding and email that's not working. She's had a lot of challenges to put this event together, and the one on Thursday. So congratulations, Kendra, on making it happen. Now, the candidates have all received the information that I'm going to talk about in advance. We have a slightly different format that we've used over the years, and the reason for that is because we have 13 candidates for City Council in Grand Forks. Tonight we have 12. Cheryl Myers sends her apologies as some personal issues have come up and she's unable to attend. So there's 12 this evening. So that's a lot of individuals that we want to give fair airtime, and we'd like them to have an opportunity to present their platform, and so we've made a few changes to the usual format. So our format tonight will be a 3-minute presentation by each candidate. We have determined the order in advance, and we have also set each candidate with two questions. It's the same question for each candidate, and we have a slightly different order for them to answer the first question, and in a slightly different order again for the third question. Our hope here is to ensure that all of them have some reasonable floor time so that you can hear from all of them. Once we're done with the opening remarks from the candidates, and we go through that first general question that each candidate is going to answer, the two of them, then we're going to open it up to the floor. We'll start with a couple of questions from the media, and then we hope to entertain 13 to 15 questions from the audience. You are not going to be able to ask each candidate the same question. One question only, and again, we want to keep this to a 2-hour time limit, otherwise people start leaving anyway, and it's the whole idea of fairness, and hopefully you can spread the questions out to our 12 candidates that are here this evening. Now, one other thing that we need to just briefly touch upon, you all were surprised how many of you came. The storm, the winds, some power outages in the area, so thank you very much for coming out. There have been a couple of power flutters here at the high school, and if there is a power outage again, we're going to wait. There is emergency power here, and hopefully it passes, but if it doesn't, there'll be a decision made and we may have to cut this event short. There will be power and emergency lights that allow you to leave safely, so don't worry about being in pitch black. But there may have to be a decision to cut the event short if should that possibly happen. Okay? Now, I think I've got everything covered. So we'll do the quick introductions, and then we will do the order in which they will make their responses, or their opening remarks. So the order for opening responses and the introduction. So there's 6 mics here that the candidates have to share, but I'd like to make some introductions first. So we'll do an introduction, identify yourself when I call your name. So first candidate that will be speaking in a few minutes, Chris Moslin, Cathy Korolek, Julia Butler, Zak Eburne-Stoodley, Zielinski, Christine Thompson, Chris Hammet, Neil Krog, Kyle Piper, Arnold Hoekstra, Danna O'Donnell, and I got that right, Danna? No?
Danna like banana.
Danna like banana. Okay, that'll stay. And Stan Hammet. Okay, so that's the order we're going to be speaking in. They'll be answering the first question in a different order. Again, the whole idea here is a measure of fairness. And each candidate knows that Kendra has some cards here. So it's 3 minutes that you're going to be making opening remarks. She gives you a 30-second warning with the amber card, and when it's time to stop, she picks up the red, and the audience will be welcome to applaud. Okay, so we'll start off then with Chris Moslin with his opening remarks. Chris, it's up to you.
Good evening.
That didn't count. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Stoodley, fellow candidates and assembly. And thank you for coming out tonight in this weather to watch and listen to our visions for our sweet little city. My name is Chris Moslin, and I am volunteering for a term that I'm sure is going to be challenging. Difficult decisions lay ahead which must be made within a framework of community involvement and respect. I believe I have the background knowledge, the practical experience, the work ethic, and the optimistic vision to again be of service to our city. Through 2 terms of council from 2005 to 2011, I became acquainted with the mechanics of municipal government. There were successes and failures, but through it all I was inspired by the devotion of city staff and the dedication of the volunteers who made our achievements possible. Since leaving council in 2011, I have continued to serve the community as a volunteer. In 2017, I was awarded the Silver Medal of Canada for that work. As I stand before you tonight, the City of Grand Forks faces 3 immediate tasks. It must protect, rebuild, and house its people, their businesses, and their gathering places. The first task is to install the structures necessary to reduce the flooding risk. Some of this work must start immediately. We don't know how much the province is going to contribute, so difficult decisions lay ahead. These new protective structures should be built on public lands. They must be well engineered, and they must act as amenities to our city. The second critical task is to restore and revitalize our downtown core. It must once again become a hub of commerce and culture that serves our Boundary citizens and our visitors. The city will need to do everything it can to attract private and public investment into this rebuilding. Tax consideration should be given, repairs must be made to city infrastructure, assistance should be offered to businesses struggling with bureaucracy, and bylaws and zoning amendments should be considered to speed up this restoration. The third task the city has is to create housing. Sadly, the province's surprise announcement showed the disconnect between the city and BC housing. Nonetheless, it does signal a sizable investment and a vote of confidence by the province. We have the talent, the experience, and the passion to create different levels of housing needed, from market housing to supportive housing to subsidized rentals. Now the city and volunteers must envision a counter-proposal that addresses the housing needs of the homeless, the poor, and the displaced. These 3 tasks will be real challenges to the next council. Putting the team together to do that
work. Thank you, Chris. Our next candidate is Cathy Korolek.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Mr. Krog. It's great to see so many out tonight, considering the weather. My goodness, trees down, power flashing. I am Cathy Korolek, and I'm married to Rod. We moved to Grand Forks September 2003 from Fort St. James. And I couldn't imagine being in a community that actually had 3 grocery stores, 3 stoplights, felt as though we moved to a thriving metropolis. I'm very happy to live and work here. Rod began work at the Nan Pope and Talbot. He has since retired. Now he works with me. Within a month, I had my shop, Heart and Soul Quilts, up and running. We've had the pleasure of meeting people from all over the world and building relationships with many of you. We have 2 children and 3 grandchildren, all a minimum 8 hours away, so we visit as often as we can. So, I can't turn the page. Okay, I'm going to have to talk real fast now. So, what do I bring to the table? I'm a wife, mother, and grandma, married to the same man for 45 years. I think that qualifies for any job. So I've worked 23 years with the Royal Bank as a financial planner, manager, and administrator. I had 3 terms as president of Rotary, 4 years as assistant district governor for Rotary, overseeing 7 clubs. I currently serve as president of the Boundary Country Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm still running my business, and I'm participating on the Flood Recovery Committee. Over the past 4 years, I've attended many council meetings, both in the gallery and as a presenter. I've learned much about our city council and how it operates. We are working through a very challenging time. Let's consider the flood and its aftermath an opportunity to rebuild. I have conversations with many of you. So many heart-wrenching stories, shared hugs and tears, the uncertainty of your future, where will you live, and what about your house? I heard someone say, we'll make GF strong again. I have never, for one moment, thought we were anything but strong. The resiliency and tenacity of business and residents never fails to amaze me. Together, we can build and prosper. Let's get our businesses running and our residents settled in homes. Let's develop a plan to protect us from future disasters. Yes, it's being worked on now. It will take patience and perseverance because it won't happen overnight. We can do this together. You have patiently listened to me. This is my application to serve on your council. It is my job to listen to your concerns, represent your values and interests. We live in a democracy. The right to vote has been hard won. In many places in the world, this right is still being fought over. Use your voice. Vote. Please cast your vote for me, Cathy Korolek, at the advanced polls for general voting day. Thank you.
Thank you, Cathy. Our next speaker is Julia Butler.
Hi, good evening. Is it on? Welcome, Grand Forks political enthusiasts. And before I start, I just want to acknowledge everyone here at this table tonight. There's 13 of us up here. And when we go to conventions, people in other communities recognize that Grand Forks is very politically engaged. And these people up here offering to dedicate 4 years of their lives to pretty much volunteer for this town. And I think that's pretty amazing. Those of us that have run before obviously like the job, and it is a very interesting job. And it's something that I would definitely be interested in doing again. 4 years ago, a friend of mine said to me, you know, we had an issue with something. She said, come out to a council meeting. It's Danna Seminoff, I don't know if she's out here tonight, and I said, Danna, I don't want to go to a council meeting, nothing's going to change. And she said, well, just come to one. So I went to one, and then I went to two. And then before you know it, you're in there and you're interested, and here I am for a second term, standing up here hoping to get back and be involved again. This term I was lucky enough to receive my level 1 certificate in local government leadership from the Local Government Leadership Academy. That's obtained by going to different courses and seminars and taking the training that's required to do a good job for City Council. As Chris Moslin said, this next council is going to have a big challenge with the flood recovery. There's a lot of things that need to be done, and personally I think that council needs to get more involved in that flood recovery. A lot of it right now is being delegated to the regional district, and I'd like to see council have more of an overseeing role in being to access the provincial government a little bit easily to get some of the funding that we're desperately needing. I'd also like to see the next council donate a piece of land to the people that are going to possibly be getting a buyout with their properties. They're not going to have a lot of money left over to rebuild. And I'd like to see those families remain in this community and for us to give them a hand up to help rebuild with a little bit that they'll have left over after the buyout. We need to reevaluate our 20-year capital plan. A lot's changed now with the flood. And over the past 4 years, I've been very fiscally conservative on looking at the budget. I think council needs to take a harder look at it and to identify the projects that are definitely a need and not necessarily just a want for the community. And now we have a lot of needs on the table. So you're going to need a council that's fiscally responsible with your money, that has experience to be able to look over that budget and to work with staff to figure out exactly what we need. Another passion of mine this term has been trying to keep council out of in-camera meetings as much as possible, to do as much in the public eye as we can, and if we are in closed-door meetings for land, legal, or labor issues, to release as much information to the public as soon as possible. Form and character and zoning, I think, is something we also need to look at as we look at revitalizing and developing the town, developing new businesses. We want to make sure we have the right business in the right place. And especially for our highway corridor that is so beautiful, I want to see it remain unique.
Thank you, Julia. Next candidate, Zak Eburne-Stoodley.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. My name is Zak Eburne-Stoodley. This is my 5th time running. I'm a 4th generation Grand Forker. I'm an active volunteer. I believe one of the questions that we're going to be asked is about that, so I'll get into more of that later. I'm a business owner. I work on Granby Computer Services. I also am a property owner in Grand Forks, so I pay all the taxes that you guys do. One of the big things we've got to look at is, of course, we've got to pluck away at all the short-term recovery efforts for flood for both businesses and for residents. We've got to keep plucking away at all the short-term stuff, and then I really want to see us look at long-term recovery, especially for all the businesses. We've got to come up with the vision. What is Grand Forks going to look like in 10 years, 5 years, whatever it may be, and just try and work towards that goal of securing all the businesses, make sure they're all comfortable for long-term things. I just wish to remind everybody to please just get out and vote. With small elections like this, your vote does count. In previous elections, like some people come in within just a few votes of each other. So get out and vote, encourage all your friends, family to vote. Just, yeah, get out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Next speaker is Rod Zielinski.
Mr. Moderator, fellow candidates, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you here tonight, and seeing that most of you don't know me, I'll give you a little bit about myself, and I hope that the questions at the end, I can tell you a bit about the way I see things. So again, my name is Rod Zielinski. My wife and I chose Grand Forks to retire in. 2011 is when we bought our house, and then it was in the fall of 2012 that I was able to get employment at the City of Grand Forks in the electrical department. So I worked 5 years in the electrical department. It was a unique experience. It was nice to see the goings on in behind the gate, so to speak, and I learned a lot while I was there. So I retired back in October of last year, so I've been retired about a year. And now I have some extra time to contribute back to the community, and jumping in head first with going for council. So we lived in Pinch Creek, Alberta. Lived there for about 20 years, and there I was employed with Fortis, Alberta on the electrical side, and I was the area foreman for the district. So working in southern Alberta, we had some long days and some even longer nights. It all depended on the type of storm that moved in and all the trouble that it brought. But it is in those emergency situations that I developed a just get her done attitude. There was the opportunity to say, we'll deal with it tomorrow, or we'll leave that and come back later. You worked until everybody was on, no matter what the damage was or what time it was. So in Pinch Creek, I also had the great opportunity to serve on the municipal district of Pinch Creek Council. I ended up serving 14 years there, 5 different terms, 5 different councils, and none of them were the same. We dealt with a lot of things back then, land use planning, whether it was commercial development, ski hill upgrades, or wind farm permit applications. We dealt with financial issues, whether it was asset management, taxation levels, or budget tightening, due to problems dealing with things on us. We also had community issues, policing, emergency services, and community spaces. Nothing different than we have here. So, again, hopefully the questions I can elaborate more on some of the issues. But I believe being a councillor is a privilege. We're here to serve the public and to provide good governance. To do this, communication is the key, and that's two-way communication. Council must listen to the public in whatever possible form that comes and communicate through the back. So, with my background, with my experience,
Thank you, Rod. Next speaker is Christine Thompson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am seeking your support to re-elect me as a councillor for our city. Having worked for 23 years in the finance department of Grand Forks, and having served 2 terms as a city councillor, I bring both experience and knowledge of local government to the table. I am not affiliated with any local political organization or group, and if successful in my bid for a seat on council, I will continue to vote for what I believe to be in the best interests of the city as a whole. I am honest, responsible, and reliable. I received my schooling here starting in grade 2. I have been married to my husband Brian for 46 years, and we raised our 2 children here. We have 3 grandsons who we adore and look forward to seeing as often as we are able. I believe that this is indicative of the stability I would bring to the table if elected. I have had the privilege of serving on many boards in our city, including Hardeview Lodge, Grand Forks Credit Union, and the Phoenix Foundation, where I am currently the Vice President. I am also the Treasurer for the Boundary Peace Initiative and the BC Southern Interior Peace Coalition. Through these experiences, I am, and always was, a team player. Grand Forks is my hometown, and I very much want to see it prosper and grow in a managed way. With the recent catastrophe our city experienced with the May flood, this is our opportunity to come together as a community, to support one another, and to rebuild an inviting place for people to move to or to visit. I wish to continue advocating for everyone who lost their homes, cherished mementos, and personal belongings during this trying time. I am proud of the projects that I have advocated for during the last 4 years that included working with the Sunshine Valley Women's Institute for the recently completed sidewalk along 72nd Avenue from the Silver Kettle to 19th Street, and at the request of my doctor, advocating for the upgrade to 22nd Street. I am proud of the work I have done in supporting the city's capital asset management plan, and that the city is now putting monies aside for future capital expenditures that will be required in the future. This is something I encouraged councils to do when I worked in the finance department. I want to say thank you to all of the candidates who have put their names forward for this year's election. I ask that you consider me, Christine Thompson, to be one of your councillors when you cast your vote on October 20th.
Thank you, Christine. And to the audience, we're halfway through, so we've had 6 speakers and we have 6 more to go. Our next speaker is Chris Hammet.
Good evening, everyone. Is it on? I moved to Grand Forks in 2004, looking forward to a small-town, relaxed lifestyle. That didn't stop me from pursuing a job in the newspaper industry, where deadlines are tight and the pace can be frantic. I would say that my primary role during those 10 years was to create events and strategies to market and promote local businesses. If our businesses succeeded, I succeeded. So it was in my best interest to assist in creating a vibrant economic climate. I decided to run for council in 2014, bringing with me those same visions and values to help Grand Forks prosper, and I bring them with me again, knowing that the challenges will be much greater this time around. One of my goals is to help promote economic growth by working with a team that is committed to business recruitment, encouraging a wide variety of shops, services, and new clean industry. Without growth, it's impossible to maintain infrastructure and social and environmental programs. As a city liaison for the DBA, Downtown Business Association, I have advocated measures to revitalize a vibrant downtown core. I have to say that up until the recent flooding event in May, our downtown had a near 0 vacancy rate. Now we start over. And I would like to be there to continue lobbying for whatever assistance we can get to get our businesses up and running again. I recently introduced a revitalization tax exemption bylaw to give landlords an incentive to improve their buildings. I also sit in on the economic recovery team meetings with representatives from Community Futures, the Downtown Business Association, the Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the Regional Economic Development Manager from Flinroe. I'm also active in promoting, through local realtors, the BC Housing Hub program in the hopes of connecting potential developers with low-interest loans and assistance in building new housing projects. including affordable homes for purchase that have no interest and no repayment penalties for 25 years, and affordable rental products. I would also like to see financial assistance to assist landlords in completing secondary suites in their homes and upper floor rentals in commercial buildings. While in college, I studied small business management, business communication, and marketing. After opening my own business, I became a director on the board for the Downtown Langley Business Association. I chaired the marketing committee for the Downtown Langley Merchants Association and sat on the City of Langley's Business Recruitment and Retention Committee. I currently sit on several different committees here in Grand Forks, including the GFI, often wearing different hats on the same day. I have a high level of energy for things that I'm passionate about, and I'm a master of multitasking. In closing, I would like to say that this next council will have an immense amount of work ahead of them. I'm a critical thinker who considers the bigger picture to make the best possible decisions, not just for the present, but for the long-term sustainability. I am committed, hardworking, and determined, and I would love to work with a unified team whose main vision is dedicated to the rebuilding of a new, stronger, and progressive Grand Forks. Thank you.
Just a quick public service announcement. Somebody possibly in this audience has left their lights on. It's a Ford Focus, license plate FSL289. So if you left your lights on, maybe you should check it. Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Next speaker, Neil Krog.
I checked to see if this worked. And I have my own clock as well. Okay. Nope, doesn't matter. Okay. No matter how many times you do this, you still get nervous. Good evening, and thank you all for coming out, especially on a night like this. My wife Andrea and I came through Grand Forks on our honeymoon. We were so impressed, we went back to the coast, sold our house, and moved here 30 years ago, and haven't regretted 1 minute. This is a critical time for our community. We face a huge, or have faced a huge natural disaster, and there's been a non-stop call for action since the flood. We see confusion, fear, and frustration on our neighbors' faces, and when we look in the mirror. We all need, want, and deserve answers, but are forced to wait for the province to make a decision on our request, which adds to the confusion and is preventing us from moving forward. As a community, we rallied and came together as never before. It was truly heartwarming and humbling. This is the mindset we need to move forward. We need to look to the future. If the province holds up their end, our downtown and neighborhoods can rebuild. North Ruckle could be dedicated as parkland and could be, if it was designed correctly, a permanent location for the fall fair that would not be damaged by any future floods. A return of the historic Fireman's Park in a way, and a memorial to the neighborhood that once stood there. Another huge concern in the community is crime. I'm not going to make campaign promises that are not achievable or that are not backed by solid, well thought out plans, including financials. It's easy to say what people want to hear. Change, it is a long and tedious process. The council put forward at the UBCM dealing with crime 3 motions, asking for more Crown lawyers, more access to courts, and the way charges are laid. I would like to thank Councillor Tripp for her hard work on all of those. All were passed and forwarded to the province. It's time BC revamped the broken judicial system. There is more City Council can do to deal with crime if the new council has the determination. Here's our chance to stand tall once again to make Grand Forks better than it's ever been. I feel that even a flood cannot destroy us. The only thing that can is loss of hope and a breakdown of community. Sadly, we're close to that now, but I'm not giving up, and I don't think you guys want to give up either. We need to keep moving forward, even if it's slowly. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Our next speaker, Kyle Piper.
Hello, I'm Kyle Piper from the board. It's on? Okay, there we go. Hello, I'm Kyle Piper, and I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I moved here with my wife and daughter, which I now have 2 daughters, in 2012 to run a business. I had that business for almost over 6 years anyways. And previous to that, I have another 10 years of business management and ownership experience. And I want to use that experience as a counselor in Grand Forks. There's many things that are in my vision. One of them is to be able to go to a park with my children and feel safe. You can't do that right now. We need to explore options to provide our own security to make it a safe place to be. I would like to see more transparency. I'm not condemning the actions of previous county councils with their workshops. However, I think there should be a place that is time permitting for more people to come and speak candidly with candidates, similar to what other communities have done with coffee with a counselor. So it's a one-on-one conversation that you can speak your concerns about. I would like to see the revitalization of downtown. Sorry, I'm nervous. We need to make it welcoming so that businesses will want to come back. There are businesses reopening. However, there's going to be vacancies, and we need to make it so there's growth downtown. And to do that, we need to make it more welcoming to customers. And now this one. The city residents that were welcoming when I moved here, and it's so great. In every scenario that was thrown at me with the flood, everyone banded together and we worked as a community, and it's such a great community to be in, and I really want to serve as a city councilor for Granby Forks. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Next speaker, Arnold Hoekstra.
Good evening, everybody, and panel. My name is Arnold Hoekstra. My main line of where I've come from is healthcare, and I've worked in that for most of my life, actually around 20 years. I first obtained my long-term care aid certificate from Douglas College, and my licensed massage practitioner diploma from a private institute in Vancouver, Washington. I have an insider's understanding of the crises and challenges that may arise in anyone's life. My family has been in Grand Forks for 10 years, 5 of which I have worked at the Boundary Hospital. My wife and I are raising 7 children and have been married for 32 years. Caring and compassion are very important forces in my life. My work career has been varied, and I appreciate the challenges and new situations present. I enjoy hands-on tasks and do well in resolving practical matters, yet always try to keep the long view of plans at the fore of my decisions. I love to garden and do my own renovations, and many of you will have met me through my work in the community. I was saddened by this most recent disaster to hit our town, and felt compelled because of this to put my name forward in this election. My goal as a city councillor is to have Grand Forks refined as a stable and caring community working in a harmonious way. The City of Grand Forks must improve its infrastructure, example levees, sewage lines, etc. Also, I support adequate funding to ensure that those who lost their homes due to the flooding and everyone who doesn't have adequate housing be secure for the winter and for the months ahead. Honesty and integrity at City Hall is the utmost importance to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arnold. Danna O'Donnell.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Danna O'Donnell, and if elected to council, I hope that my time serving the citizens of the city, some very positive changes will happen in Grand Forks. I've lived in the Boundary area for 22 years, and Grand Forks has always been the city where most of my daily life happens. I'm a horticulturalist and farmer, a wife and mother of 3. In my spare time, I love baking, can-can dancing, and volunteering. I've been a Girl Guide leader, a children's soccer coach, a regional representative for the Boundary Organic Producers Association, a board member on the Grand Forks and Boundary Agricultural Society, and held positions of treasurer, and now for 2 years, the president of the Grand Forks Fall Fair Society. I've met many of you at the farmers market over the years, and I've met many families in town through bringing my children to Strong Start, family days, and family events. I really enjoy all the people in town, and I love calling many of them my friends. I realize that this is a very challenging time in Grand Forks, and I want to look outside the box for solutions. I want to see a hydrology study done to really explore building a dam on the Granby to create revenue for the city through generating electricity. The project would create jobs for construction and operations. It could possibly help with flood control and create a reservoir to help during summer droughts and for fire control. I would love to see fencing around the tot lot in City Park. The park is right beside the parking area, which is right beside a river. It can be challenging to watch young children, and when your child disappears for a moment, your worst fears jump out at you and you look in that direction. The deer have also taken over. There's poop everywhere. When the irrigation comes on, it swells into mushy lumps, and at times you cannot even put a blanket on the ground and let your children play. A fence would also dissuade undesirable activities at night. Quite a few years ago, the Fall Fair had a permanent location with grandstands and buildings in the location of the industrial area called Fireman's Park. The city expropriated the land and promised the fair it would be given a new site. That never happened. Now that we are examining plans for housing and community needs, the city needs to uphold their promise and find a permanent location, a place that can be used not just by the fair, but by the community. And Grand Forks needs a community hall, somewhere that groups can have to rent for fundraisers and dances, weddings, funerals, meetings, that has a large kitchen, somewhere for the community. This type of larger space just does not exist. How can we be a community without a community hall? I know there are plans in the works, and I want to support this project and have somewhere where we can all come together. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Danna. Last but not least, Stan Halluk.
I was going to say. It doesn't look like stage before beauty counts here. Anyway, my name is Stan Halluk, and I decided to... Anyway, my name is Stan Halluk. I have decided to put my name for a counselor after watching the last couple of administrations and how things have been going with them. As Christine, same with Christine Thompson, I'm not affiliated with any person or group. Unlike Christine, I'm not a politician. I'd just like to see choice for the citizens of Grand Forks. And it's really encouraging to see all these people running. I was getting sick and tired of seeing this revolving door of retread politicians thinking that they could come up and go for council just whenever they felt like it. I think it's time for new faces. As far as my background is concerned, after 7 years in background and working, I didn't have enough time in this one to tell you all of it. I've got a good bio, coming up in the Gazette. Read it. If you have any questions, I'm in the phone book. Call me, and if there's anything that you want to know about what I want to do for the city, give me a call. Get out and vote. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to a close on the first portion, and that's introductory remarks from each candidate. We're now going to go to the first preset question. Now again, this is a question that all the candidates have received in advance and had some time to reflect on. So the question is, given the recent flooding disaster, the economic impact will potentially be catastrophic. How do you feel about supporting innovative means to attract new families and businesses to Grand Forks? Additionally, how do you feel about incentives to retain our current business and local populations? So that's the first question. Each candidate has 2 minutes to respond to the questions. Again, we're using the same rules, whereas they'll be given a 30-second warning with the amber card and then the red card with the stop. And again, thank you very much. The applause works wonderfully to let them know it's time to stop. We also have pre-ordered selection made. All the candidates know where they're going to be speaking, so there's no surprises. We've tried to mix it up a little bit to get a different order together. So, the lucky person to start the answering process is Danna O'Donnell.
Hello? Big question. I'm always open to hearing ideas on how to improve and grow, and supporting innovation needs to help deal with economic impacts due to flood are important. It's progressive to look beyond government grants and look at other areas and partners for support and ideas. Perhaps we can explore working with the regional district and the province to create a temporary economic development zone by asking the province to create a tax-free period for businesses that will employ 20 or more people until they become established. Bringing the community together to create a strategic plan will help bring forth new ideas for people in the community that might not have been explored. Creative thinking will help re-stimulate the downtown in Grand Forks. At the same time, I believe in having a budget in place first, and then exploring what can be done with your means. Before we can move forward, the downtown area needs to be protected from future flooding disaster. Once secured, there is a need for many businesses and services. I really look forward to being able to go downtown and buy craft and party supplies, have family movie nights, having a dentist, chiropractor, and other professional services to choose from, and having choices for children's shoes and clothing. I would love to see more of a life downtown in the evenings. New families will help grow Grand Forks as a city, and we need to look at more affordable housing. Exploring allowing larger lots that can allow for laneway housing is one idea that can help alleviate the rental shortage and allow property owners a new source of income. We need to examine how we can improve our daycares and schools, and families need jobs. That's probably the biggest reason they leave our city. By stimulating the economy, I believe we will create jobs to bring and keep those families, and we should be looking at incentives to retain current businesses and populations, not necessarily financial ones, but using what we already have around us and really letting people know all that Grand Forks can offer.
Thank you, Heather. Second responder, Kyle Piper.
I'll try to not be so nervous this time. My answer to that question is, I'm not against growth and looking at means of growth. However, we have to take care of our existing citizens first. If people want to come here on their own means, let them. If people want to start a business, do it. However, we have to take care of our own citizens first. This bio, there is no neighborhood in that price range for those people to go to. Where are they going to live? We need to develop land in order for them to have a place to live. We need to help businesses reopen, give them tax incentives. We have to look after our existing people and businesses first. Sorry. But after we take care of all of our citizens and businesses, then I would listen to any means for growth. But until we are all taking care of ourselves, I don't think it's an important issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Chris Hammet.
Thank you. This is a great question, and I can answer about what is going on right now and what hopefully will continue in the future. I feel that incentives to support our local businesses and residents is crucial. One incentive is the new revitalization tax exemption for commercial landlords. There has been a grant applied for to assist the business community with the employment of a revitalization event coordinator. This person will work under the direction of the Downtown Business Association, the Chamber, and City to provide the legwork that business owners are now doing, giving them more time to focus on their own businesses. If approved, this grant will also cover marketing and promotion for Grand Forks to attract customers, new businesses, and retain existing businesses. Local and new residents will have incentives to stay and move here if there is housing and job opportunities, both which we are and will be actively working on. Business recruitment is something we need to be looking at. A second grant application has already been filed to allow for the employment of a business development officer. Determining what our gaps are and actively recruiting those services, retailers, industry, to our city is necessary to sustain economic growth. Every time someone leaves town to shop for something that they can't get here, they're coming back with a lot more, which ripple affects everybody in the business community. So shopping locally is a huge start, and I understand that you can't get everything here, but we need to look at what gaps do we need to fill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And now Christine Thompson.
Thank you. That's an excellent question, and one that I have to say, without economic development, we're not going to have a community. There have to be jobs, and good paying jobs, to keep our residents here and employed and our schools filled. We have currently working with the regional district. There is an economic development team that has been in place for several years, but it's not working. Two of the big players, Area C, Christine Lake, and Area E, in the west boundary, have withdrawn their funding. What I would like to see is Area D and the city jointly put the funding that they are currently putting into this economic development through the regional district into an economic development officer strictly for the city of Grand Forks and Area D. They are the professionals. They can bring in the industry and people to come and see what we have here in the city. And when we have vibrant industry and businesses, then we have something to offer to people who want to come, move here, work here, come and visit us. There's many advantages, and I think that's an extremely important issue that has to be dealt with. Currently, I am the city's liaison to the Boundary Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I am invited to the, through Community Futures, the economic development meetings that they're having as a result of this flooding. So things are in the works. I can't be specific because there are no specifics to tell you. It's just general discussions at this point in time. And I think that's, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Zak Stoodley.
In terms of attracting new growth families and businesses, I'm up to different ideas, of course, but we got to definitely, like Kyle says, we got to look after our own first and make sure that they're in a comfortable situation. For the current initiatives to retain businesses and families, there was a short-term economic plan sort of roughed out, and the city started implementing a couple of those things. I'd like to see the whole thing fully implemented. There's some great grant writing in there that could help go towards businesses and some other great things to help encourage businesses to stay or just to help them hang on for a little bit. For families, there are actually at least 2 big projects going on. One's a controversial 2nd Street project. We just got word that they're actually sort of slightly tweaking it to be more to what most people are wanting, which is for just flood victims and other people that may need that service. And then there's also, they're going to build a whole bunch of other dwellings for flood victims. So there's lots of great stuff happening there. It's hard to tell exactly what we need to do right now because there are so many sort of balls in the air and so many questions that haven't been fully answered yet. So just as those answers come in, then we can make more direct decisions based on what we actually get.
Thanks, Zach. Cathy Korolek.
Having listened to everyone right now, we can't disagree with anything. We need to revitalize, we need to rebuild our downtown. Without the downtown, we won't have a community to grow. And everything hinges on one on the other. The building and increasing our population, keeping people here, stabilizing them, that will also help grow and develop our downtown and other businesses as well. It's really important to realize that without business, we don't have anything for community. Without community, we don't have business. We need to do a number of things, and the community hall is up there too, because that is a center for everyone to meet, and all of these things that we've been doing for the past several months now, we have a place to meet and we have a place to be together and understand what we're going through. Revitalizing, building, inviting people to come. So making our community a warm, inviting place is very, very important to make sure that our children are safe, that we, seniors and everyone can walk around the streets, go shopping, and feel that they're not going to be threatened in any way. That is a really important thing that we all are looking for. There isn't one thing that you can say, this is exactly what it is, because it's a unification of many ideas and suggestions, and having the economic development officers, having the chamber and all these grants and everything coming through are very important. Gives us some funding to go forward. It helps when there's some people that are ready not to open their business again. We can advertise and get new people coming to town. What an opportunity for entrepreneurs to come and help rebuild a wonderful community that already exists, and take it that one step higher. And we have those opportunities ahead of us. We need to make use of them all. And there's many suggestions and many ideas.
Thank you, Cathy. So half the candidates have responded, so we have 6 more responses to this question. Chris Moslin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm quite open to innovative ways to attract businesses. See, I don't really need it. To attract businesses to Grand Forks, but there's no silver bullet to economic development. Fortunately, the people of the Boundary have been working on this for years. With the help of Community Futures, small businesses have been initiated and nurtured. The community has benefited from previous revitalization projects that were a cooperation of businesses, service clubs, and local governments. And previous councils have examined the issues of economic development. We even have a Boundary Economic Development Committee that considers issues impacting governance and the local economy. So rather than list some great ideas, and we've heard some, I would like to put forward some guiding principles that can be used to recognize the next innovation or incentive. First, does the new idea lead to long-term community development that will improve the skills of the people and leave a visible improvement? Will the next big thing encourage change? And does that change with the community's vision? If we want to be known as a green community, then that innovation or incentive must lead to improvements in our sustainability. Does the innovation capitalize on the community's assets? If we are known as a cultural and physically active community, then successful incentives and innovations will encourage those behaviors. Can innovative partnerships between local governments and businesses be created? And how will we know if the innovation and incentive has worked? Has an evaluation strategy been part of the idea? So I'm ready for those ideas. Bring them on.
Thank you, Chris. Julia Butler.
Thanks, Michael. So right now, council, like the other couple councillors have said, we are doing quite a few things to help stimulate economic growth. We donate $15,000 a year to the Boundary Regional Chamber of Commerce, $5,000 a year to the Downtown Business Association, and we also had a rep, like Christine said, on the Boundary Economic Development Committee. But I do agree with Christine, I think that needs to be formed now into just the RAD and Grand Forks. Now with all three of those committees, we have liaisons that report back to council, but I think that communication needs to be improved. We need to maybe take more time as a council around lunch or in a workshop just discussing what's going on at those different tables so that council as a whole has a general understanding and then can send back recommendations to those groups so that it's a two-way communication and we can have more interaction with them. Chris Hammet also mentioned the business development officer that we've applied for a grant for. And I also mentioned earlier that I think we need to have more involvement in the recovery team process. Jennifer Wetmore, Community Futures, has been doing a great job with involving council with her work that she's doing as our lead for that pillar for economic development. And one thing that was mentioned by her team that she brought in is that we need to celebrate every new business every business that reopens after the flood. We need to celebrate those things and get the word out there that Grand Forks is coming back, that our businesses are reopening. The tax revitalization bylaw was mentioned. I totally support that. Our development cost charges are low for developers in Grand Forks, and also our land prices are low. But quite often what I've seen happen in Canberra when we're dealing with land deals is we're kind of stumbling over the process of it, and I don't feel like we're getting bites, but we're not reeling them in. And I want to see a more formal process developed for council to review those applications and for staff in dealing with developers when they come to town so that they feel welcome and that they're handled really expediently. Housing for workers and contractors is also going to be a big issue coming up with the recovery, and hopefully some ATCO trailers can be brought in to help with housing reversal.
Thank you, Julia. Zielinski.
Thank you. So it's obvious we're going to have to pull out all the stops to try and get people back into town. On the tax side, we've heard about the revitalization tax exemption, also the local improvement areas that we can try and work with, and other issues in the land bylaw or the zoning bylaw that we can probably work with to attract other people. But I believe that the main key is the housing. We've got to create housing for all levels of people in the community, and I believe that some of that is going to require council to invest into our infrastructure a little more than what we're doing now. We're seeing a lot of bare land left idle, mainly because the cost to get the main water and sewer and other services there are too expensive for developers. So we'll probably have to eat the cost to get it into a shovel-ready position so that we can get some housing developed. But I believe that's the key to keep us up and going, whether it's new young families, like me retiring, or other different housing levels. I believe that's the key.
Thank you, Rod. Neil Krog.
Thank you. Wait for your time, Bill.
I hate my phone. That's just. Actually, I could probably do it without a mic, but I'll use the mic instead. Innovative ways to attract families, businesses. I think a lot has already been said by a bunch of people, and I don't think anybody would disagree with any of it. It may not be that innovative, but something as simple as maintaining and enhancing the beauty of our community. That's why I moved here. continue to provide a level of services and amenities that can make the community attractive to both families and business. Incentives to retain business? Well, we could start by not allowing a mega cookie cutter project to be built at the entrance to our downtown. Is housing needed? Yes. Is that the place for it? No. And we had a glimmer of hope. They've gotten back to us and said that they're trying to revamp the plan to make it more palatable. It's a start, but that's all it is. It's a start, right? And that is about it. Oh, wait a minute. No, I have 30 seconds. Okay. In any bad situation, if you look, you can find something positive. Even a devastating flood, it brought a sense of community and neighborhood never seen before. We need to continue to build on that momentum as we see Grand Forks rising from the floodwaters to again be the community it should be, the community that we all fell in love with, and that's why we're here. So thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Stan Halluk.
Julia can sit down, so can I. Anyway, what we need is we need a well thought out design, hydrologically proven. We read a remedial study on the floods in Grand Forks. We're living a pipe dream if we think we're going to get businesses come to here to relocate if we don't have that plan. We have businesses in the floodplain downtown Grand Forks that are not expanding and they're not going to do any money, spend any money on the building until they see a plan from the city to stop the floodwater. Drawing a red line on the map and saying we're going to build a dike here and that's going to solve the problems is not going to cut it. Most of the water in downtown Grand Forks came up through the storm sewers and it was groundwater. A dike is not going to stop it. All it's going to do is fire all that high water down through Area D and into Christina Lake. We need a flood plan, and we have to get the province in here and off their butts to start working on it. A dam on the Granby, like Danna says, that can provide us with electric power, can give us a reservoir for water that we need in flood times, is a hell of a good idea. And anybody that comes here and says, well, we need a 90-foot dam there to hold all the water back is full of baloney. We don't need that dam that high. We need a dam high enough that will stop the floodwaters from getting into Grand Forks. And our last item is, before we start worrying about this, how about the 80 families that are still living in RVs and trailers and are looking at spending the winter in that trailer? We need camps out here. We could build a construction camp in an hour that would have heat and light and sewer and water with no problems. Just get a construction company out here and set them up. What are we going to do with those people?
Thank you, Stan. And the last speaker on this round is Arnold Hoekstra.
A lot has been said, and I'd have to agree wholeheartedly with Stan here, because if we are thinking to bring in new businesses and incentives, we have to really look at taking care of what we have right now, which is people need to have housing. And also to, I would have to agree with the improvements that need to be done, because if we don't have that in place, then these questions really don't apply. So that is something that has to be done. And also, in the interim, we can be keeping our downtown clean and orderly, so when people do drive through it looks like some place they'd like to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnold. So that's it for question one. We're going to go on to question two, but a little bit of background. These two questions were developed by members of the chamber working with Canvas, so it's not that they were just drawn out of a hat. a little bit of input and thought putting them together. You also notice that when every candidate has a chance to respond, and the introduction and all the other stuff, it takes us about 25 minutes to answer one question. So every candidate spoke to it. So we're going to spend another 25 minutes or so on the second question. But to you, the audience, you can only ask one question to one candidate, and there's no follow-up. And that's because you can't take 25 minutes on your question. We'd like to have as many people asking questions and putting things out here. So be strategic as you're thinking about your question in the next 25 minutes, because you have to pick the candidate, you can ask one question, and you can't have a whole lot of preamble. It's got to be quick and dirty, so to speak. So giving you a fair warning on that. Okay, question number 2. It is imperative our city council work as a team. Describe situations where you have worked in a team environment, specifically with individuals with opposing views. Again, our candidates all received this question in advance, so they had some time to reflect on their answer. They know they only have 2 minutes to respond. They have already seen the routine with the warning cards, etc. from Kendrick. We have a different order for this question, and we're going to start off now with Neil Krog.
Hello again. Interesting question. My answer would be any council meeting I've been at, any regional district board of directors meeting I've been at, any Kootenai Boundary Hospital District meetings I've been at. You sit at tables with people with opposing views, and at the end of the day, you're still able to make a decision which benefits the community. Another one, dealing with BC housing tops the list. We need to get everyone that was flooded out of their home, the owners, landlords, and renters back into housing before we worry about any project not specifically designed for them. The business community, which is the lifeblood of any city, is struggling to rebuild and has serious concerns that this project could mean an end to the historic downtown. We do not need the distraction and the community fracturing at this fragile time. We need to band together and try and move forward as quickly as we possibly can. And again, the frustration everybody feels when we don't get the answers. So we're hoping they come through pretty quick.
Thanks, Neil. Next responder is Stan Halluk.
My answer to that question is never. I've never had a chance to work in council where I could work with 6 people and come up with a decision. Most of my background is in construction. You did your job, or you didn't last very long. But I will learn. If the city people, the voters, see fit to get me into council, I will work in a constructive, helpful manner. And all I have to think about is that I'm stuck with 5 other people and a mayor. We're in bed for 4 years. Cooperate and be constructive.
Okay, Arnold Hoekstra, you're up next.
Like I said before, most of my experience has been in healthcare, and to look for examples of working together as a team, you have to work as a team, otherwise you can't get the job done. I thought of some examples to give in healthcare. Before we had all the fancy ceiling lift gadgets and stuff like that, we used to have to try to manipulate or get in position people who can't stand, or maybe stand on one leg. And I remember we had a guy that was a very large man, and there was a whole bunch of nurses standing around him, and he wouldn't stand. But as soon as me and another orderly came by, he was like, "Oh, let me do it," right? And other situations, of course, working in Riverview, we had to deal with a lot of difficult situations that took a lot of thinking more than acting. So those are some examples of working with difficult people. And I agree that we have to work as a team. There can be infighting and some of the nonsense that was going on here this last term. So hopefully that'll be ended and we'll have a group here that will work together in harmony.
Thanks, Arnold. Danna.
I am a team player. I've been a cheerleader. I've been involved with coaching and refereeing soccer. I've played volleyball recreationally. I'm a member of Les Folles Jambettes, our local can-can troupe. This summer, we managed to represent Grand Forks and Canada while performing in Germany. It is a huge team effort to pull off a good kick line. I have been part of boards where there have been challenging times and difficult decisions. Working in the local abattoir taught me how to work in a tight space with many people, handling sharp knives under less than ideal conditions while following standard operating procedures and following government rules. Our family often refers to ourselves as Team O'Donnell, and it helps us to work together in our daily lives. Most of all, I am the president of the Grand Forks and District Fall Fair Society. The fair had been declining. I've managed to build a team of people with various skills and interests, people that are from their 20s all the way to retired, people with skills in societies, quilting, derby cars, finance, and social media. We all meet together regularly, and by working together, we have been able to bring new life to the fair. Our meetings flow, have order, and people leave happy and inspired. Many people have commented on how great the Fall Fair is once again becoming. This is all in part of the great team that we have built. I have leadership skills, and I am a team player. I'm able to assess problems and look for solutions, and I like to think I'm a problem solver by reaching out to the right people to help find solutions. I know we can grow Grand Forks by working together.
Thank you, Danna. Kyle Piper.
My experience as a team player has been in basically any workplace scenario. I'm passive and can acknowledge another person's opinion, regardless of how I feel about their opinion. Working with others that I don't agree with, we've been able to make tough decisions and overcome our differences. As a council member, you have to be a team and listen to others that expose the worst case scenario. There are a councillor or two right now that play devil's advocate, and the worst thing we could do is not respect their opinion. Even if I find the likelihoods of that worst case scenario to be slim. On council, many demographics are represented, and we won't agree with them all. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Chris Hammet.
Thank you. My summary on this is going to be very brief. I've been on council for the past 4 years, and I've sat on many committees and boards. It's important to have an open mind and respect for others' opinions. At the same time, have the ability to debate and advocate your own views. You are rarely going to find a board where someone doesn't have a different position or a stance on a particular issue. But one has to realize that once the board has made a decision, it becomes a decision of the board and must be supported as such.
Thank you, Chris. Christine Thompson's next.
God forbid that there be any organization, association, council that agrees on everything all of the time. We don't want to rubber stamp recommendations. We want to debate them. And yes, we do have differences of opinion. And I think that's healthy. as long as the debate is respectful and does not become personal. There are decisions that have been made by council that I haven't supported at the table, but I support in the community. And I would hopefully encourage all who are elected this term to do the same thing. It's just the decisions that we make and the debates and the discussions that we can have can be really overwhelming. And personally, I like to listen to all sides, what everybody has to say, and then I make up my mind on how I am going to vote. So having said that, I do believe that I am a team player, having served on many councils, boards, as directors, as participants, and I don't think there's anyone that would dispute that I am not a team player.
Thank you, Christine. Zak Eburne-Stoodley.
It's definitely, council needs to work together. Over the years, I've volunteered on many boards. I've helped with Harvest Fest, Homecoming, Canada Day, like pretty much everything. I've co-founded Spotlight Films, GFCon. Most of my work experience has been with customer service. Owning my business is actually a partnership. So again, with all these different scenarios, you're working with all sorts of different personality types all the time. And you figure out how to make it work. Out of all these candidates here, there's only 2 that I haven't had a direct relationship with in some capacity. And I'm sure I could make a really great relationship with those 2 that I haven't built a relationship up with already. So.
Thanks, Zach. Cathy Korolek.
A team player. I think that is most important. I did write out 2 scenarios, both having to do with different personnel conflicts or whatever. And it doesn't really matter what it is. You need to voice your opinions. You need to respect others and their opinions. And think about the subjects that you're discussing. And oftentimes you don't agree, but if everybody goes along, if it's voted on, you go with the majority. And you should do it with some grace and be willing to accept that decision and move forward. Fighting all the time does not work. Good heavens, I've been married for 45 years. You think that's been an easy job? No. So and we can still manage. And that's really important because I think that sets the tone for just about everything you do, is to have a compatible group. There's no way in this world that 6 people, a mayor and staff and everybody else is going to always agree. That's not human nature. Human nature is everyone has a different opinion, but it's to work it out and come to a conclusion and then stand by and respect what everyone else has said and go with the decisions that are made. I work well as a team. I don't know, you remember report cards, you work well on your own and better as a team. So let's do that. Let's be a team. Doesn't matter who's elected. So thank you very much, and I will appreciate your vote on the 20th. So take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Cathy. Chris Moslin.
Thanks, Chair. I've spent my professional career as a teacher. For all those years of staffing, as a forum, very dedicated, very passionate people who cared deeply about the children they served. It's just that they didn't always agree on how to serve those children. So there was many times in my career when I had to listen carefully to what others were saying and perhaps even change my mind. One possible example I can give at the Assembly is when FIST took over the Pearly Annex. Initially, I was quite opposed to that because I wanted the extra room for the children that we were trying to serve. But I was convinced that the community as large needed FIST. That's one of the things that you have to look for in a counselor. Can they listen? Can they change their mind? Can they accept it with good grace and move forward? Certainly there's lots of examples in council that I could give you. I enjoyed my 2 terms on council. And you know your council is working hard when there's a 4-3 vote. Yep, disagreement. But you know it's a really good council when the next 4-3 vote, it's a different 4 and a different 3. Because then they are listening to each other. They're not just playing teams. They're playing one team for the benefit of all. Well, I tried to illustrate that the most important strength for any counselor is the ability to listen, to change your mind. I like the idea of grace. And it makes it a lot easier to go from talking about something to doing something. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Julia Butler.
Thanks for the question, Kendra. Growing up, I did play a lot of team sports, baseball, soccer. I did synchronized swimming. That's a team sport. You have to be right on with each other. I did a lot of traveling with those teams. I was the, what do you call it, the top person, the person that flipped the coin and made the decisions for the teams. And I was on a lot of boards over the years, too. I'm right now sitting on the rec commission and also on the gymnastics board for a gymnastics club we're trying to form here in town. And I love those roles. Those boards have been great. There was one board I was on before council that wasn't so great though, and things were happening that really concerned me. And instead of dealing with it, I chose to quit that board. And I've heard that that's happened with other nonprofits in the area. You know, things get tough, and it's easier just to walk away from those boards than to deal with it and to deal with the uncomfortable situations. And I think that's unfortunate because a lot of good people end up leaving the nonprofits in town where we really need them. And I'm sure a lot of you know that this council started off with a very difficult decision. I was taken to the Supreme Court, and it was very difficult to go through that for a couple of years. To have people that you work with wanting to remove you and possibly lose your house if you lose the court case. And after that, we still had to work together. And with the flood situation, I think that really brought us together. Since that time, I've actually enjoyed working with these 2 ladies I went to the UBCM with. We had a great time there, and we made some great decisions, and we talked very well together for Grand Forks to the province. I think this incoming council is going to have a bit of an easier time. We have a great CEO sitting right now who's a real peacemaker, and I'm hoping that when the new council comes in, that they'll take the time to form a team, to go on a retreat together, get to know each other, hash out the problems right from the beginning, and really put their differences aside so that they can continue to work together for the next 4 years and actually maybe have a good time doing it.
Well, Rod, you're a Zen and you're still last.
Last as usual.
Rod Zielinski.
And on that note, remember when you vote, I'm at the end, so save the vote for the end. So I had 2 different scenarios, and one is similar to most of the people is municipal government. If you're not a team, you're not getting anything done. So in my past, I worked with other municipal governments in building a new pool, new library, or whether it's intermunicipal development plans or regional growth strategies. Without being a team, you can't get anything done. The other situation I want to mention is, by trade, I'm a power line. And you may have disagreements with your partner. You may have just a bad day. But I can tell you, once the 2 of you jump in the bucket, go up to those hot lines, and start moving things around with the power on, things get serious awful quick. You work as a team, you communicate well, and you get the job done. You leave what's on the ground, and you concentrate on your task. So, you're not a team member there, you might not be going home. So, you have to be real. So I want to take this opportunity to remind people that I have a Facebook account. So a bunch of these questions that I won't be able to answer for you, I'll be posting on there. And I look forward to meeting a few of you on the 13th at the Curling Rink when we have a meet and greet with candidates. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end of the round of questions that have been prepared, where the candidates had opportunities to reflect on them in advance. We're now going to start opening up the mic. First, we're going to allow our media person, Kate Sailors from the Gazette, to ask 2 questions. She also knows she has to be specific as to who she directs her questions. So she's going to introduce herself, select the candidate that she's directing a question, and proceed with the question. So you've got the mic, Katie.
Candidates, thank you so much for being here today. Okay, perfect. Thank you, candidates, for being here today. My name is Kate Sailors. I'm the reporter for the Grand Forks Gazette. I know many of you already, and I've appreciated working with you while I've been here. So obviously, we've got a lot of fresh faces here. We also have some returning faces and some faces with a lot of history behind them here tonight. So more or less at random, because you all gave very good answers, I'm interested, Chris Moslin. You have a long history as a councillor and as an advocate in this area. And obviously you were asking for votes once again this year, this election. So to people who have voted for you in the past, why should they continue to vote for you? Or for people who haven't voted for you before, why should they give you a second chance?
Thank you very much, Katie. Please, folks, if you know me, you know whether or not you want to vote for me, right? I've been here a long time. I'm a bit of a liberal, you know, yeah, I have a bleeding heart. And so, if you don't like that, don't vote for me. But if you like that, and you like somebody who gets things done, then I'm probably a candidate you should consider. I have worked really hard on trails, and let me tell you, Canadians love trails, and they all love the same trails. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. For my second question, obviously we've heard a lot tonight about flooding, and flooding I think has been a lightning rod to galvanize many people in our community to take municipal politics more seriously, because they are finally seeing the really tangible impact that our local leaders have. So to Cathy Korolek, please. We've heard a lot about flooding, but prior to the flood disaster, what was the main issue you considered in our town, and how will you take action on that? You've got a long 4-year term ahead of you, and flooding is certainly a part of that, but it's not the only thing that we're working on.
Okay. Well, being a part of the chamber, being a liaison for the Downtown Business Association, have my own business and living downtown, part of it, I think, is to have businesses feeling safe, that they don't have to worry about locking their doors behind or before some people come in. They can walk outside, they can park behind the businesses rather than in front, because it's safe for them to walk to the back. That their young employees or themselves, I think a feeling of safety and security, not only for the business owners and their employees, but for me and for you, for all of us to be able to walk on the Trans-Canada Trail or any other trail or around town that we want, and not feel that we're going to be accosted or run into a situation we don't like. And we live in a little town. One of the attractions to me for a small town is that I can walk anywhere I want to and feel safe and secure. And I think that's really important. And it's great to go out for a walk and then I can run into Chris Moslin or anybody else and know that I know them. That's another good thing in our town. You actually get to know people and learn more about them and the way they live and the way you live. I think safety and security is a really paramount thing here.
Thanks, Kate. And just in case there is a drought of questions, I'll call on you again, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I anticipate we have roughly 30 minutes left. We said it's a 2-hour session, so in 30 minutes we anticipate you can maybe ask anywhere from 10 to 13 questions, assuming people stick to our timelines. We have 2 microphones, one to the left, one to the right. When you come to a mic, I'll acknowledge you. You need to identify yourself, identify the candidate you're posing your question to, and then pose your question. Keep it short. You're not running for the office, they are. And keep your preamble, to a minimum. So, we're open mic.
I'm Tammy Battersby, is the microphone. I'm resident here for just over 5 years. I have a question for Rod, and that question is, what's your experience on council with housing authorities, and how do you see a housing authority benefiting Grand Forks and, better yet, the Boundary?
Thank you. Remember, 2 minutes and watch for the warning sign.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. In Alberta, where I came from, we did have housing authorities. They had local representations as far as the people in the public, and also council representation. That housing authority actually had taxing ability, and so that's why the need for councillors or people that help the tax streams involved. We found it a very great tool to collect all the uses, all the needs in the community, whether it was seniors housing, low-income housing, affordable housing, transitional housing. At least you had one body to go to try and arrange all those things. The body in Alberta had management capabilities also, so they manage the projects also. But that's what I see in this community, is there's a lot of people trying to do things with housing. We've got to collect people together, come to a plan, an idea, something to present to the province on what we in the area. I think regionally, whether we have transitional housing here in Grand Forks, and maybe there's more low-income housing in Midway, but we have an area here that people call home. And I believe we can grow on those strengths and have a focal point for our housing strategy. But definitely we need to collect all the stakeholders and come to some conclusion on what we need.
Go to the mic on the left and follow to the mic on my right. Okay, sir.
A simple request of Chris Moslin.
Please identify yourself.
Gary Brandel Sr. Simple request of Chris Moslin, who would hopefully be a much bigger issue in the immediate future. Chris, would you support the construction of a kiosk in the immediate future on the Kettle River on the old Columbia and Western Railroad line at the southeast corner of the open grassland park? The kiosk would direct people to the river, who many consider one of the better recreation sites.
Yeah, thanks Barry for the question. I have discussed this with you. We did put in 2 kiosks this year and 3 benches on that trail. That's definitely a future site to be considered by the group. We will consider it, or the society will consider it. I hope that helps. I'm certainly interested in the history of that spot. There's a lot to tell to the community and the visitors about the human history and the natural history that takes place there. So the quick answer to your question is yes, we will consider it.
Good. Our park employee certainly supported it at the Fall Fair.
Thank you. My right?
Good evening. I'm Laura Savinka from the Boundary Peace Initiative. I have a question for Zach. Well, we've heard a lot of this about the flood. We consider it as a symptom of climate change. Would you consider promoting and pushing forward alternative sources of energy, such as wind and solar, rather than rely to lessen our carbon footprint?
You bet. Alternative energy is going to definitely be something that everybody across the globe has to look out in the future. That's where all the jobs are going to be, that's where everything is going to be, and it's, of course, obviously way better for the environment than coal, nuclear, especially nuclear, gas, and all those other things. So if there is a good proposal for a way to switch Grand Forks to some alternative energy, I'd definitely up for hearing about that. Yeah.
Okay, again, Mike on my right.
My name is Donald Ferrand. My question is for Julia Butler. And it is this: are the citizens of Grand Forks and the RDKB being shanghaied into supporting a watershed authority in the boundary that's going to end up being a Trojan horse to advance the dam project that Danna and Stosh mentioned tonight, and that Brian Hill was talking about already.
First of all, I'll address the dam issue that's come up a couple times. So we do have a hydrologist report, and I spoke with Mr. Dobson at length about this. He has looked at the idea of a dam on our Granby River and has said that it's not a feasible project. Number one, it wouldn't be able to hold back the volume of water coming down. Number two, it would be far too expensive to build. And number three, it wouldn't have power generation capacity that would be able to give us a return on that investment. There were other reasons as well, but those are the three main ones. As far as the Watershed Authority shanghaiing that, there was provisions within the Kettle River Watershed Management Plan that recommended water storage areas. I think water storage is excellent. If you can do that in different ways without the dam, we definitely need to keep as much water here as possible. Right now, Jessica Mace is running the Kettle River Watershed Authority. I have full confidence in her. She's a wonderful lady, intelligent. She knows what she's doing. She's a great environmentalist. That authority can be used for a number of things for the flood recovery, and they're heading up that pillar right now, the environmental pillar, with doing works in the river, clean up of the river. So those type of things are great. I am concerned, though, that some of the areas that they're helping with, although they're good, are actually the authority of the provincial government, and even though it's nice to help them out, the provincial government should be paying for that, not our taxpayers. So I'm kind of torn. I mean, there's positives and negatives on both sides of it, so I guess we'll leave it up to the taxpayers to decide what they think.
Thank you.
Lady on my left.
My name is, my new name, I used to be Shauna Shu, I'm now Shauna Reichel. I've been in the community for many years. I'm going to address my question to Arnold Hoekstra. The regional district is going to have a referendum vote on this municipal election. It's to either vote yes to have the boundary integrated watershed services, or no to not have this. This is basically to have a $160,000 a year dedicated staff member to oversee the boundary. Just wondering what your thoughts on that, and if you would be voting yes or no on that.
I'm not 100% familiar with the whole...
There actually is going to be an information session this Thursday, October 4th at 5 p.m. at the multi-purpose room at the high school here. It's basically what I went to one session at Christie Lake, and they want to have a more local representation for the whole boundary area, so that we can take that to the province and have more say than we would as individuals. So I recommend that all the city councillors, as well as the people running for mayor, attend that forum and ask questions, because this is going to affect the city council and the Grand Forks, as well as the area boundary, and we do work closely with the regional district. So if you're not up to speed on it, I advise that you find out more.
Okay, I think I'd have to go to that meeting too before I can make a more informed decision on that, whether yes or no. Thank you.
Lady on my right.
I like being called a lady. My question is for Neil Krog. My name is Joan Thomas. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business for BC Municipal Funding Watch. Right now, Grand Forks is 111 out of 152. One being the best, 152 being the worst. So we're not in a very good position on municipal spending. One of the recommendations is sharing resources with other communities. Nelson shares their CFO with Slocan, Silverton, and Selmo, which is a way to attract talent and share resources. With your experience on council, have you guys ever considered sharing resources with other communities in order to reduce our costs, provide services, and get us into a better ranking with municipal watch and spending?
Yes. Yes, we actually have done some of those things that you're looking at. I forgot the very first line that we're saying. If you could repeat.
Well, we're 111th out of 152, and my question is about sharing resources. Greenwood, Midway, we have a lot of city workers, we have a lot of equipment that maybe we can share, and I'm just wondering if consideration has been given to that to reduce our costs.
To some extent. We have agreements with our fire departments for assisting other areas and other fire departments. We have shared the CAO with the city of Greenwood. I know that there's been more than a few other occasions, I can't think of it at the top of my head, where we actually did that. We had people come from another community to help us, or we sent somebody else to help that community.
Okay, well maybe the next council, whoever forms it, look at this report and get us better than 111, maybe up to number 1.
Microphone on my left.
Billy Patterson came here in 2001 as retired already. On the last council.
Excuse me, who are you directing your question?
Oh, directing, I'll have to take somebody currently on council. Chris Hammet. Came here in 2001, loved the place. Through the last 4 years, I've seen things deteriorating prior to the flood. The thing that concerns me the most is the number of sessions of council that go in camera. You never do find out what's being discussed. There have been decisions made that I would question. There is a big need for places like Whispers of Hope, socialized housing, etc. I currently sold my house that got gypped out as a place was going to buy. I'm currently homeless, looking. There's nothing to buy in my son. And I'm just wondering, in the past 4 years, most of what I see is destruction. Whispers of Hope, no plan to fill the desperate needs of the people that have been put out in Bruckle. I mean, it's going to snow this week, and there's no place to stay. The only completed construction I have seen has been the mayor's house. I do hope the next council can address the issues to the general public.
Thank you. With regards to Beth and Whispers of Hope, they had a temporary 5-year lease on that property. When we came into council, it was my understanding that the previous council had decided that at one point they would be buying up that property all along the river to use for community use. At the point where the lease expired, it wasn't able to be used for community use. It was a dangerous situation. People couldn't walk down to the forks, they couldn't walk down the trail. As far as immediate housing now, we have a recovery team in place that's looking after our housing needs immediately with the provincial government. They're ready to go, they have plans in place, they're just waiting for word back from the Premier on pulling the trigger. We understand that there's people that need homes immediately. We've expressed that when we met with the Premier 3 weeks ago. We met with Selena Robinson and indicated the same, that we had a 0 vacancy rate prior to the flood, and now we're even in more dire straits, that we need more housing and we need it now, and we couldn't believe that we're 4 months into this and still haven't had any funds released. We met with Emergency Management BC and expressed our concerns regarding the fact that our recovery team and the city had been made to jump through hoops by having to apply for different funding streams through different grants and looking for the timing to make sure that they caught that grant cycle. And as far as I'm concerned, when it's A disaster like we've just had right now, we need to assess what we need, how much it's going to cost, and believe me, we've had a ton of experts in this community over the past 5 months, 4 months, just going through this whole in detail. But there should be a trust fund set up for us so that we can get work done immediately, and then let the province worry about where the funding stream is going to come from later. But we need help now.
Thank you. Kate.
I'll jump back up here in the absence of any more questions for the time being. So I'd like to direct my question to Arnold Hoekstra, now that we can get into some of the more specifics. In 2014, you made national news because you were let go from your job as a care aide after refusing a flu vaccine. Obviously, that's a deeply held personal belief, but you refused the flu vaccine after direction from superiors and from your union. So obviously, I see a lot of parallels there to situations you may encounter on council, and I'm curious as to how you handle those situations.
Well, it's a conviction, but it's not necessarily, because I've heard people say that, well, that means you're not a team player. Well, I like team sports, and I like to work with people, and I've worked with people for years. So that's a personal decision that I made based on the fact that I believe it was coercive. And I knew what was going to happen. So that shows you the conviction that I did have, and still do have, because I didn't want to. Well, people said, why didn't you then wear the mask? Because you had the option. But again, it was coercive, and their aim there is to have 100% compliance. They want everybody to have flu shot, which is, in my understanding and many others, it's ineffective anyway. So the reason I didn't wear the mask, which I didn't really understand myself, because I actually did want to wear it, but my conscience would not allow me to do it. And later on, I understood that it was because I did not want to base my decision on fear. So I would rather lose my job, which was a good job, by the way, benefits everything, than to allow the Goliath to get its way. And obviously it did get its way, but I stood for what I believe. And actually many other people agreed, but they, for whatever reasons they have, they didn't want to do it. I'll leave it at that. I mean, you can draw your own conclusions. Thank you.
I'm back again. Nobody else came up. Just a really quick question. Julia, in your comments earlier, you said to put the right businesses in the right place. And I just would like a little clarification on what you mean by that. Thanks.
Thanks, Joan. Yeah, what I've seen with our zoning and our form and character bylaws is that they're quite general. And I think we need to really take a look at our OCP, our official community plan, and decide specifically how we want certain areas of our town to look. And when land is sold and a developer comes in that wants to put something on that land that meets the zoning requirements and it meets the form and character, the design that's outlined within your bylaw, they have every right to do that, and you can't stop them at that point. So we need to look at things ahead of time and design things in a beautiful way of how we want to see our town, which businesses we think would fit in a certain area. For example, I don't want to say for or against the Tim Hortons development that's going in, but a lot of people have said that's just not the right place. We didn't consider traffic, we didn't consider if it was going to block the businesses behind. But it meets the form and character, it meets the zoning, so council has no say in that matter. When we look at our beautiful strip right through our town, I'd like to see us get very specific on what we want the design of those buildings to look like. We have a great heritage corridor section. I'd like to see that continued further out. I'd like to see that tree-lined street continued right out, and then challenge Rolly Russell in Area D to continue that tree-lined street right to the mountain coming down the hill. I mean, what a glorious entrance to Grand Forks if you had a tree-lined canopy coming into town, and then a heritage corridor with unique local businesses along the strip rather than commercial, just cookie cutter Clonesville type drive down the strip and have your fast food restaurants and your used car dealerships. I mean, yeah, that's great. We want to attract business, but let's make sure that we have the right businesses in the right spot. The downtown core, what type of services do we need down there? Let's design our downtown core in a unique way that brings out our decor heritage components that are already there and beautify it in that way. Uptown by Extra Foods. And so
Kate, you've got the mic.
Thank you. My question is directed towards Chris Hammet. You've spoken a lot about downtown businesses in your remarks this evening, but obviously a small percentage of voters are downtown business owners, and a larger percentage are just regular tax-paying citizens who have their jobs. And so how would you assure those citizens that you are going to take care of their interests, in addition to the interests of the downtown?
I think it's all part and parcel of good leadership, listening to what the community needs, having a vision for the future of Grand Forks as a whole. Residents need a place to work. Businesses provide opportunities for work. We need to bring in new businesses, and we need places for them to live. So both business and residential work hand in hand together, whether they're in the downtown core or whether they're on the outskirts of town. And I think we have to look at a large variety of different businesses, not just like the mom and pops downtown, the little niche stores, but I don't think we can dismiss the other types of businesses. Like, we need somebody who's selling cars. We need gas stations. We need those other commercial enterprises. We also need to look at how do we want to we've already zoned our land, so we know where residential is zoned. We know where it's single family, we know where it's multifamily. You know, now we just need to encourage the developers to come in, or investors that are sitting on land, and encourage them to start developing and putting those houses in place and the commercial properties where they are.
Gentlemen on my right.
Good evening, hopeful councillors. My name is Nigel James and I'm a member of the corporation. I often start that way just to remind people that we are a corporation and we're all members of it. When I first came to Grand Forks about 10 years ago, I'd been here about a week and I said to somebody, "Where's the community centre?" And they said, "There isn't one." I said, "What?" I couldn't believe it. I suspect we've been trying to get a community centre since the city was sort of formed in 1897. There is a community centre in every other large village or town in the boundary. And the one exception is Grand Forks. We've been trying to get it for some time. There's been a report produced, 70 pages long, very turgid report, but at least it brought certain ideas to the to mind. And my question is to decide which council, concurrent council, I think Councillor Christine Thompson. The report, it took a year and a quarter for that report to be written, produced, and for me to read it. At that rate, it's going to be about 21,097 before we get anything done. But how do you suggest that we expedite and manage to get the community centre built, especially when one considers, I can't remember the figures, but in a survey done, it was along the lines of 95% of the people who answered the questions said that it should come from long-term funding. Broad question.
Thank you for the question, Nigel. And it's a good one, and it's timely. You may recall some years ago there was a proposal for a community center, and it just went all wild. And it was going to cost several millions of dollars, and so that was not approved. But there have been grants applied for, and I don't want to make an announcement that somebody else should be really making, but it's my understanding that a grant application has been submitted and approved for a community center to be built alongside one of the existing facilities in the recreational area. And that announcement maybe forthcoming tomorrow night. I don't know. But I don't want to burn any, I don't want to overstep and spoil someone else's announcement. So I can tell you that it will be happening, and hopefully in the sooner rather than later. So please stay tuned for that. There is some good news out of everything else we've been through as a community, so there are some positives that are going to be happening.
Okay, we're coming to the end of our time, so one last question, and we're going to give that to Kate Sailors.
I'll give it to anyone else, literally.
Okay, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, and I guess the last question of the night then goes to Zach. So obviously you said you made a run at this many times before. You're also doing this candidate running tonight. So I'm curious as to what you think you bring to the table that's not represented by anyone else running this evening.
Something new to the table. Well, I obviously am quite a bit younger than the majority of these people, so I do see things in a different perspective. So if an idea does pop up, they might be thinking one way, and I might say, hey, what about maybe just adjust that, think about this way. And who knows, it may be something even bigger and better. I see that happen in many of the boards I've been with. We get some people thinking in one direction, and they're sort of almost stuck in that one direction, and then they get somebody else come in and say something different. So that's just ideas or something that can be something new to the table. I've already talked about lots of my experience. I have run my own business and all that, so I definitely have experience. That's about it.
Thank you, Zach. Now, just a reminder that on Thursday, the October 4th, there's going to be another All Candidates Forum for the candidates running for mayor and for candidates running for our school board office. You're all welcome to come. It starts at 6 o'clock here as well. It's also sponsored by the Chamber. Thank you to the candidates, and thank you for having the courage to stand and run. You did kind of have to put yourself out. It's great to see so many of you interested in doing this work for our community. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to the school district for making the facility available, and thank you to John Popoff, the IT manager of the district, and his team for making the sound system work for us. Drive safe and home. Good night.